What's up, everybody? My name is Eddie Gurrola. I'm going to be your host for the Popcorn Reef show. A lot of people have been asking for us to do a show. We're going to keep these short and sweet. This is kind of one of the many formats we're going to have of the show. Basically, today we're going to be talking about physical media collecting. We've got an awesome guest, Brian Riggs from City Heights. He's a local physical media collector. He's going to come on, talk to us about all that stuff. I'm going to talk about some stuff I've been doing behind the scenes for the shows. I'm also going to bring on some of my kind of favorite picks I've been watching at home lately for a segment we're calling Treasures on the Reef. And we're going to change that because it's corny. I want to give a big shout out to Manny. He's producing this show. Manny, the Movie Manny podcast, which is his show, is available. You can check that out as well. But again, like I said, we're going to keep these short and sweet. I want them to be informative, fun, let you connect with physical media, let you connect with everything we're doing here at Popcorn Reef. Some of our other segments you can look forward to on future episodes. We're going to be sitting down with some of the greats, do something called history lessons where we learn, get a deep dive into what it was like being in the film scene in the 70s, 80s, 90s, during the times that I'm most enthusiastic about filmmaking, trying to soak up some knowledge. We're also going to be having the Q&As that we do at our live screenings in San Diego when we have filmmakers come down, which is, again, a lot of soaking up game and also learning about how these films were created that we love so much. We're going to have those guys come on, and we'll have a recorded version of the Q&A for a little segment we're going to be calling Now on Home Video. We're also going to be putting that together. If you missed the show or you're somewhere else around the world, we're going to be having that. Also, we're going to be sitting down with some people here from San Diego that might own a local business or might be a local artist here, and we're going to talk about movies, and we're going to talk about what it's like running a business here in San Diego. And that's going to be our locals only sub show of the Popcorn Reef show. But for this first show, it's going to be very heavy into physical media and everything about home collecting. So before we do all that, I'm going to tell you guys about the shows we got coming up in February and March. So we're very, very blessed to have the legendary director Brian Biezunski join us on February 28th at the Adams Avenue Theater in Normal Heights. He's going to come down here. We're going to do a live Q&A for Society, which, is my favorite Brian Biezunski film. And in my opinion, is really the most important Southern California-based horror movie of all time. And I don't know if that's like a huge statement or whatever. To me, there's no question about it. And really, what we're going to explore, or what I'm hoping to explore when Mr. Biezunski comes down and we get to talk about it, I think there's a folk horror element to Society, which I don't think gets a lot of acknowledgement because, of course, there's the body horror and there's the, crazy shunting scene at the end and all that. And that's, one of the reasons why I love the film so much and why everybody does. And the practical effects from Screaming Mad George are just, whoa. But, when you look at it as someone from Southern California and someone who's there's different, people get classed and grouped in different sections, and there's always this kind of elitist, super rich subset of the culture here that, whether it's through old money or people that have been here forever and live in the mansions in Bel Air, or it's people that come here and they think they're hot shit because they made a hit record or made a hit movie or something like that, and now they want to act like that. There's always this hey, I'm cool and fuck you narcissism that is very, very prevalent, especially in Southern California. I've lived here most of my life, so I've assumed that this is the way the world worked, but apparently not in every community is that really so prevalent. And Society is really about that. And so I think being from Southern California, you're going to get a lot more out of Society. And hopefully if you're not from Southern California, you might not have thought about that from Society, but that's really what the movie examines. And I want to talk to Mr. Biezunski about why, what drove him with this story. And we also, of course, we're going to go into the practical effects and everything else and 80s movies as well, because I think Society, along with maybe Reanimator From Beyond, which are two movies that Brian Biezunski produced, I was born in 1988. A lot of these images, which I didn't see any of these movies until I was in my early 20s. They're like what I was afraid of, as far as nightmarish visions I had when, I was 3, 4, 5 years old. Some of my earliest memories of what I could be afraid of are a lot of the things depicted in these films. So I have a connection and an affinity for these movies, and I'm sure in a completely different way than someone who was an adult making a film did. So I'm interested to learn where those, those ideas and everything collide with someone who, was an 80s baby like me versus someone who generated all that stuff for the culture and for pop culture in general during that time. So if you're local here in San Diego, February 28th is the date, Adams Avenue Theater. We're doing it Popcorn Reef sleepover style. So you guys bring your own blankets, bring your own pillows, lay down on the fucking floor if you want. Bring some camping chairs if you want. Sit it your way. We have obviously the regular style chairs there as well. And let's do this for society. Later in March, we're going to be back at the 10th Avenue Arts Center downtown. And we've been doing a lot of really cool double features there. We're trying to have them themed in certain ways. I don't want to get too it's summertime, it's 4th of July screenings, it's Thanksgiving screenings. I mean, we're going to do all that type of stuff, but we don't want to be tied down by that as a film programmer. It's a little too restrictive sometimes if there's a cool double feature you want to do. So March, there's not really a whole lot of themes to go on. So I'm using this as a time to just do a double feature I wanted to do. And we're in March, we're going to be doing the Grindhouse Girl Gang Night. So we're going to be highlighting Switchblade Sisters from Jack Hill. And we're also going to be doing Cirio Santiago's The Mothers. So I'm going to break down a little bit about both of these films and why I think they make a great double feature. So really, when you look at exploitation films, and I think this might be more of like if you're really into exploitation films, what I end up getting from them, other than the visceral elements of the sex and the violence and the bizarre concepts and like the political attitudes that they have in these films, I think when all those things converge and there's a really cool idea, what ends up happening is you can kind of get like a fantasy type of feel in a real world setting that, since everything is so exaggerated, it creates a sense of surrealism, but also I think the story itself just kind of plays like a cartoon in a certain sense. And those type of movies are, just in general, are what I tend to connect with. And these movies from the 70s that have that edge to them and also can give you that, I can't even wrap my head around them. Again, I was born in 1988. I don't know what the age audience is for the people watching this. And again, you probably have a different experience. I didn't live through the 70s, but these things I feel like, were before me, and I wish I could have lived during that time because there's just so much awe. And I've used the word spectacle probably 5 times when we've been filming this damn thing so far. But I think that there is a lot of fascination with how the form of film could be presented and the power that it had. And you can see those, of course, in like the 70s blockbuster films and the studio produced 70s movies. But in exploitation films, you get that sense of wonder and then the imagination. But there's this fantasy element, especially in these two films. That's why I picked these two, that converge in there, and it gives you something that, to me, as a filmmaker trying to figure out how to do this stuff, it just endlessly fascinates me and it inspires me. So plus they're both really fucking awesome movies from 2 fucking awesome directors. Jack Hill also did The Big Dollhouse, The Big Birdcage, Coffee, other awesome movies too. I mean, you can go down the list. He's one of the best exploitation directors ever. And Cirio Santiago, I think, also deserves to be on that list. He's a Filipino director who collaborated with Roger Corman. He was just down there in the Philippines, and the stuff that he makes, I mean, The Mothers is a perfect example. Is one of his best films. The first 20 minutes of this movie, there's a black girl gang they're pirates and they're on water, and the way it's shot with the grain of the film and everything, it's just, not only who would think of this, but it all feels right while it's happening. And it's such an imaginative movie. And then it gets into other different forms of the exploitation subgenres through there. But Cirio Santiago is just on a whole other level of just going for it and not giving a fuck. And I don't think The Mothers is the best example of that. We're going to be showing some other Cirio Santiago movies at Popcorn Reef later, but definitely a somewhat underlooked director as far as the exploitation film history. And I can't wait to show both of these movies. I hope you guys join us. That's going to be at the 10th Avenue Arts Center downtown later in March. Society, February 28th at the Adams Avenue Theater in Normal Heights. We'll be right back in a couple minutes. We're going to hit you with a new segment called Treasures on the Reef. But first, and we're going to be doing this throughout the program, if you like it, Let us know if you think it's stupid. Let us know too. We're going to be cutting in trailers as our little commercial breaks. Here's a trailer for Society.
For Bill Whitney,
I've never been paranoid.
fear plays a large part in family life.
I feel like something's gonna happen. And if I scratch the surface, there'll be something terrible underneath.
He's afraid his sister
Could you zip me up, Billy?
is not what she seems.
God, Bill, what's the matter with you?
He thinks his friends are out to get him.
Make waves, Whitney. You're gonna drown.
People are what they are. Now you have to learn to accept that.
He's about to find out the truth
Why are you guys doing this to me, huh?
What, you've been living with these people all your life and you didn't know anything about this?
is far worse than he could ever imagine.
If you don't follow the rules, Billy, bad things happen.
Don't go home, Billy.
No.
Bill Whitney is about to become one
Showtime, Billy!
with society.
Who are you? Let me give you a hand, Bill.
In Beverly Hills, what you fear is only the beginning.
Anything for society.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Popcorn Reef Show. I'm your host, Eddie Gurrola. We've got all sorts of new segments for you today, and I'm really excited about this next one. It's going to be called Treasures on the Reef. We're probably going to change that title because I don't know how cool that sounds, but I like the idea of it. Basically, you know, there's a lot of shows that I'd like to put out at Popcorn Reef. Sometimes we can pull them off, sometimes we can't. And sometimes, you know, these are things that I'm just kind of watching at home, and I thought that they'd be really cool things to share. So here's what we got for you today. Basically, since the beginning of Popcorn Reef, you know, when I'm trying to come up with double features and like ideas for a show, this was something that kind of popped out at me after I'd seen these movies for the first time, maybe only like 2 years ago or so. But I wanted to do this double feature with these two films here. So this is Cry of a Prostitute, starring Henry Silva, who sadly passed away last year. He's a film icon, incredible actor, known for all sorts of different things, and mainly for being a bad guy. But in this movie, he plays a good guy. I guess or at least that's what the Italians thought when they made this movie. So I'll jump into that in a second. This is out now. You can get it from Kino Lorber. This is a Code Red release, and shout out to the great late Bill Olson, who put this out originally, repressed through Kino Lorber. You can still buy it. So it was going to be Cry of a Prostitute, and then we would go into Sharky's Machine. Oh, I'm holding that weird. And if you haven't seen this movie before, I genuinely think it's a masterpiece. I had never seen it until about 3 years ago, and I was just telling Manny here in the background, like, I think this might be one of my favorite movies. Like, you know, it's hard to tell because I've only seen it a few times now, but this is genuinely an incredible film. Burt Reynolds directed it. It's not a Smokey and the Bandit film, although those are awesome movies too. This is a serious drama, and the late great Henry Silva is in it, a different type of role. So here, let me break these down for you. Yeah, so let's talk about Cry of a Prostitute first. So Henry Silva in this film is the good guy, and he's the lead of the film. He's brought in to annihilate criminals by a super secret government organization. And so his role is to go in and infiltrate that system by being a criminal. And there's kind of like the Yoji Yambo type of thing going on here. There's a ripoff of that. And I think it was maybe like a ripoff of Django and Fistful of Dollars, like, you know, that type of stuff. Since this was in Italy during that time, everybody loved that stuff. So there's that going on, but there's basically the subtext of this film is that the criminals are prostitutes. And so he runs into a woman played by Barbara Boucher in the movie, who is a prostitute, and there's some pretty graphic scenes of his anger. And I think only the Italians would think it would be okay to have this type of subtext in the film, which, you know, if you're not looking at it from hey, what's the real meaning behind this? It's just like, it looks like pure misogyny, but he basically, you know, inflicts a lot of pain on her and on everybody else. And then at the end of the day, he's like Rambo ×5, like treated as this like macho god that, you know, has destroyed, you know, anybody who doesn't have the integrity of a man. That's basically Cry of a Prostitute. So you see Henry Silva as a good guy in the world of the criminal underworld. And then in Sharky's Machine, which is an incredible movie. I want to emphasize these movies should be watched in their own right. And, especially Sharky's Machine, this is a masterpiece. I can't say enough about it, but in Sharky's Machine, it's cool to watch because Sharky's Machine is about Burt Reynolds, who's a cop who's dealing with the criminal underworld in America, of course. And he's trying to deal with a lot of things going on in his life and the way that he is. And kind of, I think it stretches toward kind of the nature of man, where there's some ugly things about being a man or instincts that we have. And really, Henry Silva plays in this movie a archetype of evil and of this underworld of, sex trafficking and all these different things, because Burt in this movie runs into a prostitute and falls in love with her. And by the end of the movie, what's so brilliant about this movie, and I've never seen another movie do something like this, really the film ends up being about, and this isn't a spoiler, I really don't think it is, the film ends up being about Burt like surgically excising the evil out of himself or out of man, because he's trying to be a good guy, but he is kind of an asshole. And that involves, killing this ghost-like or, devil-like figure that Henry Silva plays. So that really plays awesomely if you're going to watch them back to back. So if you want to do a double feature, Cry of a Prostitute, Sharky's Machine. I hope we will do this one day at Popcorn Reef. It's going to be incredibly expensive to do this, and we always got to be mindful of the economics, but if you guys will come to watch it, we'll fucking do it. And so that all happened. I had that plan, and then just a few days ago, I watched this, it came out through Scorpion Releasing. Shout out to the great Walt Olson, who's no longer with us. So we got a Bill and a Walt movie here. This came out through Ronin Flicks. I believe you can get it at hamiltonbook.com right now for a super killer price. Also probably on roninflix.com. They still have some copies. But this is a movie that Henry Silva did for United Artists back in 1963 that is shot in black and white. And now that I saw this, I was like, okay, now a perfect triple feature would be all three of these movies at the same time. Because in this movie, it's called Johnny Cool, and he has some of his Rat Pack buddies in here. Sammy Davis Jr. is in it. He does the theme song. He's in it a little bit. Joey Bishop's in it. Telly Savalas is in it too, and Elizabeth Montgomery, who played the lead in Bewitched, is in it as well. This movie is, I don't watch a lot of stuff from the 50s and the 60s, and I do want to get more into it, but this is a fucking badass movie, and it really, goes for it in a way that I didn't know movies did back then, and leave it up to the late great Henry Silva to inspire me to watch a movie from the 60s in black and white. But this movie, basically, he plays a Sicilian rebel leader in the underground post World War II, and he's recruited by a Chicago Italian American mobster, kind of like an Al Capone type figure, to come in and annihilate his enemies in return for some money. And it's very vague in the film as to why he's doing this exactly, because his principles are correct at the beginning of the film, but he kind of gets seduced by the evil and the idea of doing something for money instead of doing it for your passion. And the Henry Silva character in here ends up being a bit of an amalgamation of both the hero, we call him that. If you see Cry of a Prostitute, I don't know if you can call him a hero, but the hero in Cry of a Prostitute, and just the crime lord, evil devil from Sharky's Machine. So, and it has the Italy connection as well. I really just think that if you watch, we'll try to do it. We'll try our damnedest to do it as a Popcorn Reef. This is going to be really, really expensive with all three of these. But if you do these three, if you're looking for a night, you do all three of these, you're not going to be disappointed. So that's it for Treasures on the Reef in this for this first episode of Popcorn Reef. We're going to be back in a minute with one of our local fans here who is a big Blu-ray collector like me, and we're going to talk a little bit about collections, physical media, and all that. In the meantime, we're going to throw you the trailer for Cry of a Prostitute.
For a lousy $25, some men think they can do anything just to hear the cry of a prostitute. Passion explodes like never before. Cry of a prostitute. You'll hear it echo in your blood.
All right, guys, we're back on the Popcorn Reef Show, and we're joined now by Brian Riggs from City Heights. How you doing, Brian?
Doing great. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Yeah, we wanted to bring some people on here that are, enthusiastic about physical media collecting here in San Diego. And I know that you've been diving into this. How long you been doing the whole Blu-ray collecting thing for?
It started for me in the pandemic. Like one night I realized that I really wanted to watch Blue Velvet and couldn't find it on any streaming service. And
That's what happens,
I
right?
remembered when I used to collect like Criterion DVD back in the day, like when I was a teenager, and then like my DVD collecting kind of just went to the wayside. I got really into collecting vinyl and stopped caring about movies. And then I don't know, I bought that copy of Blue Velvet, and I saw a couple other things online that I was interested in, and it started from there. And then I got deep into like different boutique releases and discovering other labels, and then that opened up this kind of exploring more sides of like film that I've never explored before, like getting way deeper into like exploitation cinema and old genre films. And so it's been like a fun little journey the past like almost 3.5 years. So.
I would definitely say it is a journey, because there's we were talking about that just earlier on the show, that there's these rabbit holes you go down once you find a certain director or somebody, a famous actress that you like or whatever. And then you're like, hey, I didn't know they made this film too. And now with all the boutique labels out, you can probably find a good quality copy of that. So what's a couple of films you've seen recently from the collection, that you've discovered from doing all this?
So recently, I have one sitting right here. I had never watched this. Oh, sorry, I have a dog in the shot.
Okay.
I hadn't. It's funny. This is a classic that I haven't watched until recently, and I picked up on Arrow. But I just got the Barbarella.
Oh, hell yeah!
Put out, and I fell in love instantly. Jane Fonda was definitely a babe back in the day. But
that movie's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's that's a good one. Let's see, what else do I have here? I picked this up. It's one of the Black Emanuel films. Nice. Violence in a Women's Prison. It's funny because my friend Brian actually was the one who sold this to Reanimated, and then I bought it afterwards and didn't even know this was his copy. But
do you think he sold it because he got the whole Black Emanuel box?
Did. Yeah.
So he's like, I just need to get rid of the single release.
Right.
I have that single release too, but that's with that rat scene. It's pretty nasty.
Yeah, that's pretty sleazy, but my tolerance for that kind of stuff's gotten higher. So.
Yeah, you build an immunity to it over the years.
So speaking of sleazy, this one, Mardi Gras Massacre. Ooh. Yeah.
So Brian, you also are into going to thrift stores, pawn shops, that type of stuff, and buying these movies to kind of not only necessarily to resell, but also to repurpose them. Tell us about that journey.
Yeah, because I started seeing a lot of stuff when I'd go to like thrift stores and swap meet and stuff like that I knew people would be interested in, that I either already owned or didn't necessarily want. Like a kind of like some throwaway like horror movies, like the Saw movies or something like that I'm not that into. And I realized like this sitting here for $1, someone would definitely want to buy this for like $5, or something used. So I started reselling on Amazon and eBay. My girlfriend has her own reselling account, and she kind of helped me with that. And I don't, it's not really profit driven. I mean, it's nice to make a few bucks, but it is like kind of cool to like, I'm finding this stuff that someone's definitely going to want, and it's probably just going to sit here and gather dust. And if I don't pick it up, so yeah,
that was really a lot of fun.
Any franchise like post like 90s, I can't get into, like I tried, I'll watch those like Conjuring movies and stuff, and it's just so corny to me, and not in a good way. Like,
yeah, well, what do you think that it is? I feel the same way, but why do you think that is? I mean, I have my own answer as to what doesn't connect with me about a lot of those current films, even though there are some that do as well. What for you doesn't connect?
I don't know. I feel like they're just kind of it's not necessarily going for like a hardcore horror audience. It's not going for people who've been, love the genre from, going back to, the classics. It's kind of just for people who want those jump scares and don't want to think too hard. And, and there's other little gripes I have. Like I love practical effects, and I'm not big on the CGI. it's just kind of, it seems like a lot of them have really redundant storylines. I've watched a couple that surprised me, like that. Someone sold me on the prequel to the Ouija film, and I watched that by Mike Flanagan, I believe.
Ooh, that movie was a gnarly little movie.
Yeah, that one was good, and I was like, okay, like, so every once in a while, one will come out that I don't mind, or, I've watched a couple of those Blumhouse releases that I didn't hate, like Black Phone was fun.
I like that movie too. That was a great movie.
But it was fun. Like,
I liked it a lot. I was actually just thinking about it the other day because I saw a van driving by and I was like, oh, am I going to get fucking picked up? No, actually, I'm 36 years old, so I won't, but it's still scary. But yeah, dude, I mean, on my end, I just think of to me, a lot of the horror films that are coming out now don't have like a way out, if you will. They're so nihilistic, and you don't think that they're, you would think that the 80s movies are more extreme, if you will, but there's so much darkness, and it's not with a light at the end of the tunnel. And I don't believe in a lot of storytelling like that. I think sometimes it makes sense, but when it's the right story, but I don't really like just kind of like, hey, fuck you, and there's your movie. Like,
that's how I tried with like Terrifier, and there's some fun set pieces in it. There's some fun kills, but as far as like, yeah, it's not something that I love.
I got a lot out of the Terrifier movies at the same time, which is interesting. I know a lot of people feel how you feel about them. I really enjoy. Maybe it's the practical effects, but I really enjoyed like reveling in the nastiness of it. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. So you mentioned that you go to Reanimated Records, one of our favorite stores in San Diego. And shout out to Nick and Lynn. Yeah. So have you like ran into other people from the community through going to Reanimated Records and other things, like hopefully some of our screenings too? Like, what do you think of the horror community here in San Diego so far?
That's one thing I'm trying to get more involved in. I've had just kind of brief encounters there talking. I saw one time me and this guy, I was talking to a friend I was with about a certain release. I think it was like a import of Wicker Man, and I wanted it, but I had a hard time justifying $75 for a single film. But and I was talking about, I was wondering if it was all region, and this guy just kind of interrupted me. He's like, "Oh yeah, those releases are all region," and then we start talking about our collections.
Hell yeah!
It was one of those like just kind of brief encounters where we didn't kind of exchange names or anything. And after the fact, I was like, "Oh, maybe I should have asked that guy's name, or see that he had like an Instagram or something." But that's one thing I'm really appreciate about what you're doing with Popcorn Reef is having these screenings so that like we can kind of start feeling a sense of community around these things that we're passionate about, because especially the way we're this like social media driven culture now, it's hard to meet people like IRL that share the same passions. I want to develop a more like personal community, because it's like, yeah, I can go on Reddit all day and talk to anonymous people about what we're picking up, but it's just not the same as having someone you can text or call or meet up with.
I know what you mean, and I really do think as we build the Popcorn Reef screenings out more, that's the number one thing I'm trying to integrate, is a way for people to talk. Instead of, we need to kind of have a little bit of a social hour before, because I was thinking, like, I don't know if you bought the new Conan the Barbarian set from Arrow, but
not yet.
The fiasco that happened with Amazon, where they, I guess they were letting more people pre-order it. Then they made copies, and now it's out of print. So I had a pre-ordered copy from Amazon, kept getting delayed. And so I went to Barnes and Noble because they were having that Arrow sale. And they had, like, at the Escondido location, they had like 12 copies, and they were gone like in an hour. So it's like, these people are here in San Diego County that would be into this shit. And you're right, it's very hard to find someone here locally that's into it. But I'm glad we connected here, and I'm glad we're doing this, because if you guys want to connect, let us know. Yeah.
And if you want to add me on Instagram, I have a very easy Instagram handle. It's my first and last name and the number 4 that was selected by Facebook. I didn't come up with that, and you
just rocked with it.
But
I like that. Yeah, so hit him up, Brian Riggs for Instagram. He's looking for more Blu-ray friends. I'm looking for more Blu-ray fans. You can hit me up at Popcorn Reef. And yeah, thank you so much for being on the show, Brian.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for joining us for the first ever episode of the Popcorn Reef Show. We'll be back with another one very shortly. Thank you to Brian Riggs for coming on the show. Shout out to everybody here who is in San Diego and is collecting physical media. We hope you join us for the Society show on February 28th and Switchblade Sisters and the Mothers, the double feature in March at the 10th Avenue Arts Center. I'm Eddie Gurrola. Thank you guys so much.